Hey, I'm AnthonyRomano, and in this video, I'm going to squash the keto muscle building concerns that people have. So this is not meant to be a debate video. This is simply explaining to you some of the logical rationales behind why you can build muscle on a ketogenic diet, and it's actually a great technique for lean bulking and muscle building. It's the technique that I've used for the majority of my bodybuilding lifestyle / career, whatever you want to call it. Okay, I've been keto bodybuilding for the past 9 years, lifting and doing fasting for a little bit longer than that, and I've been coaching people to success with these results, or successful results with these techniques, okay? So I'm going to explain this in this video, and I encourage you to like it, because that will make YouTube show my content to more people, and that's all you have to do to help me grow my page. Also subscribe and follow me on Instagram. Let's get into it. So, when we're looking at keto bodybuilding, the main concern that a lot of people have is twofold. Number one, don't you need carbs to grow muscle? Answer is no. The real thing you need to build muscle is protein, and the availability of amino acids is the primary dictator of muscle building. The second thing is calories. People are saying, oh, well, you're going to be less hungry on keto. Isn't it harder to get calories? There's a longer answer to both of these, but the short answer to the second question there is that you don't necessarily need super high calories to build muscle. In fact, you'll generally be leaner if you do, moderate, slight surpluses of calories. And it's quite easy to do that. I have videos documenting it. And overall, when you're eating fats, they're more calorically dense, 9 calories a gram. So that not only means that they're going to boost your calorie total more, but they're a better fuel. They have more than double the amount of energy per gram than carbohydrates do. Now, the primary concern people get into is insulin. Insulin from carbohydrates can provide a massive anabolic hormone surge. This is true, and this doesn't mean carbohydrates aren't going to help you in some way. They can help you, and I'm not by any means saying that keto is the only way to build muscle or burn fat. It's simply that you can do it, and it can be very successful in a lean bulking environment, because insulin provided from protein is still significant enough to provide muscle gain. But insulin itself is not actually the only thing that matters in the equation. It is necessary to trigger mTOR, which is mammalian target of rapamycin, which is the primary muscle building pathway in the body. But however, leucine, which is an amino acid, can also stimulate mTOR. These are things that none of the requirements for mTOR are carbohydrate. It's actually only insulin. That's the only thing that you can make a claim for coming from carbohydrates. But granted, that doesn't mean that for some people slamming more insulin isn't going to help them. It might. But even then, getting adequate protein is sufficient to achieve that goal. Now, even more important than that, even more foundational, is that protein and adequate stimulus are the primary dictators of muscle building. Positive nitrogen balance. If you have enough tissue broken down, your body perceives the need to rebuild it. Our bodies are survival and adaptation machines. Okay, so we adapt to the stressors we put on our body. If our body wasn't able to build muscle, even in the absence of carbohydrates, how would we be here, right? Would we just wither away? Especially when you think about the fact that carbohydrates do not grow in the wintertime thousands of years ago. Up until the agricultural revolution, we did not have carbohydrates available all the time. You couldn't ship them over from Mexico. They didn't have preservatives in them to keep them around longer. And the sugar count was actually a lot lower because a lot of these fruits and grains were more dense in fiber. And over years of human agricultural engineering, we selectively picked the fruits and grains that tasted better because they were higher in sugar. So overall, it was not like there was an abundance of sugar, even in the muscle building that took place thousands of years ago. So, and granted, we weren't seeing, beefcakes like Ronnie Coleman or Arnold Schwarzenegger back in thousands of years ago, ancestral times. But people would build muscle. The fact that we're alive today and you can build muscle through some sort of means implies that you came from ancestors that had the ability to build muscle through some sort of means. Now, here's the argument that says you can actually build muscle a little bit better when you're on keto. Okay, the reasoning, of course, stems from things like you have better fuel usage, there's less waste created in, intracellularly when you have the citric acid cycle, the Krebs cycle. You create less waste when you're not always running on a carbohydrate metabolism because you're not making as much pyruvate. But that's besides the point. The thing is, when you think about the most anabolic parts of the day, take a moment to think about that. Guess what the most anabolic part of your day is when you're asleep, right? What is going on when you're asleep? You're not eating anything. Your insulin is the most stable, your blood sugar is the most stable, and you're actually producing the most amount of ketones. Now, this is interesting because we know that everybody talks, one point everybody can agree on is sleep is very important. Your brain repairs itself during sleep. Your body repairs itself during sleep. It is literally the most anabolic part of your day, the most building-oriented process of your day. But it occurs at the time where you're not eating anything, unless you're like sleepwalking and waking up in the middle of the night and eating stuff. Chances are you're not eating during your sleep. So again, if you already don't buy into the fact that our ancestors wouldn't have had carbs available year-round, granted there's little variances for different parts of the world, but for the most part, nobody was on a carb diet year-round in ancestral times. But then when you think about nighttime, this is something everyone can agree on, even if the first point didn't sway you. This is the most anabolic part of the night, or of the day. And it occurs because you have higher fuel utilization. When your blood sugar is stable, you have a better ability to use fats. When your blood sugar is skyrocketed, your body wants to use that sugar. A, because too much sugar would kill you. Too little sugar will kill you too. But the point is your body stabilizes sugar and you get consistent fuel usage to run the glymphatic system in your brain, which is a sort of central nervous system cleansing system. And tissues repair. This also plays into how, cholesterol is going to distribute fuel throughout the bloodstream. Cholesterol is basically a way for fuel to bypass the digestive system, and when you are chalking your bloodstream full of sugar, you're not going to be getting as good access to circulatory fuel. That's a broad generalization and dumbing things down. But when we're talking about the most anabolic part of your day, that is when you're the closest to ketosis. When babies are born, they are consuming ketogenic breast milk. Unless the mother had just pounded back a Coca-Cola before breastfeeding the child, maybe. But most people would agree that's probably not a good idea. When you're in the womb, when you don't have the ability to digest food yet, you are achieving food not through your own digestive system, your own consumption of food. It is not coming from, breaking down sugars in your liver. And when we're looking at the most anabolic parts of your life, it's when you're a child, when you're growing, when you have a fast metabolism, right? Whenever somebody says to you, oh, back in the day when I used to have a fast metabolism, that's just when they had better access to ketosis. Their body was able to grow so quickly. They were producing so much growth hormone. They were distributing glucose where it needed to go, and then after it was used up, they were relying on ketones and fat as the primary fuel. This is also why when you don't eat anything, ketosis is your default metabolism. If you stop eating for 16 hours, congrats, you're intermittent fasting, but what you're really doing is making more ketones. Granted, you're not in nutritional ketosis, but you are getting closer to the ketogenic state. This is why growth hormone will go up, and what growth hormone will do is basically distribute glucose where it needs to go. It'll basically transport things where they need to go. It's not necessarily like it's the biggest anabolic muscle-building hormone, but it's a big anti-aging hormone. Now, when we're talking about other hormones raising when you're a child, when there are carbohydrates being used adequately, then you're not going to be storing much body fat. That's the sort of fast metabolism people talk about. Like I said, when people are saying, oh yeah, when I was a kid, I could eat as much as I want. It's because your body had a better ability to use fat as fuel, and as you got older on a carbohydrate diet, you've lost that ability. This is also why people who get very old, well, not very old, but middle-aged, and they start developing insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, it comes from years and years and years of no breaks without sugar. So the thing is, most of the type 2 diabetics I work with, most type 2 diabetes is reversible. Granted, that's not to undermine anybody who has a serious condition like that, but a lot of the times it's diet-induced, and it doesn't actually mean the full inability to make insulin. It actually means a severe insulin resistance. So again, this comes from a exaggerated state of constant years of carbohydrate usage all the time. So the main premise for ketosis is that it's the absence of carbohydrates. It does not mean, high fat, low protein. So, because in a high fat, low protein case, if you're underdoing protein, of course you're not going to grow. Okay? But that is not what the ketogenic diet is. That is simply the therapeutic ketogenic diet that was developed in the 1920s to treat children with epilepsy. It's just a way to guarantee high ketones, which is what children with epilepsy would need. Okay? And what happens to children with epilepsy when they're on that diet? Their brain is able to repair better. When you look at people who are on diets for reversing dementia, Alzheimer's, right? Another glucose transport issue related to type 2 diabetes, but simply in the brain. Essentially, one way to look at them is insulin resistance of the brain. Again, broad simplification here, but the reason I've helped people with certain brain injuries is because years and years and years of consuming sugar all the time gives your brain and your body no breaks from sugar, and your body prefers to repair the most vital organs with fat. It does not want to do this with sugar. Sugar could be contaminated, and your body would rather delay repairing certain issues, certain organs, than do it with sugar that could be contaminated. Okay, think like if you're pounding back Snickers all the time, there's a reason why people say eating clean makes you feel better. If you're eating lots of junk food, your brain and your organs are not going to want to repair because they don't want to risk making vital tissue out of tools that could be broken or damaged, right? You would die if you started making your brain out of Snickers bars. Okay, and the thing is, when we're talking about fats as fuel, we know your brain is made almost entirely of fats. The omega-3s, EPA, DHA, your brain is made at least 60% of those fats. The the layer around your cells is made of fat. Your mitochondria loves to churn through fat, the powerhouse of your cells, which is what everybody learned in grade 9 science class, or if you watch an episode of the Magic School Bus. So, essentially, when we're looking at the most anabolic process in your body, does it seem too far out of the question that they can still occur when you're running on not carbs, especially when you consider that the fuel that isn't carbs is more than double the energy density? Our body stores fat because it is the preferred fuel to have on hand. Granted, this doesn't mean sugar is not going to supersede fat. That is what sugar's purpose is in nature. It's a luxury fuel. It's only available half of the year in most places, and whenever you have it, it's readily available. It's like the nitrous oxide fuel in Fast and Furious. You can still get a nasty speeding ticket with gasoline, aka fats, but if you want that quick burst, that's carbohydrate. But the key is, you don't run your entire car off of carbohydrate. You don't run your entire car off of nitrous oxide, or else you're going to burn out the engine. You're going to run into those issues with plaques in the brain, beta amyloid plaques in the brain, insulin resistance. You're going to burn up your engine. You have to use carbs the way nature intended, which is sporadically. It doesn't mean that you can't have carbohydrates, and I'm saying that. I actually believe it's a great way to have ketogenic dieting in place and have some great satisfying carb backloading days, some targeted keto days. Make it work around your lifestyle. On that note, you could also take a very fasting-oriented approach, because when carbs weren't available in the wintertime, ancestral times, there would also be lots of fasting going on, which is the same thing as the ketogenic state. All ketosis requires is the absence of carbohydrate. It does not require high fat, dumping butter on everything, and only eating, a little bit of bacon per day as your protein. That's not what keto is. That's simply the marketed version that people are given. The point I'm making here is that even though I have results from myself and people I've worked with to, prove these sort of things, the biggest case study we have here is golden era bodybuilders. I've made videos on how golden era bodybuilders are basically in ketosis, or they were. And besides the fact that we have evidence from Vince Gironda's students, which if you haven't heard about him, I encourage you to look up my videos or my friend Golden Era Bookworm's videos on him. This guy was so strict, and he would make people do these low carb approaches, these ketogenic approaches. He was a pioneer of it. And if you watch footage of golden era bodybuilders, they are roasting each other. If somebody's eating bread or rice or starches, if somebody's not having their, if somebody has their potato with dinner, they're going to get chirped and made fun of, okay? Besides the fact that we have those little jokey references, we know their diets were mostly ketogenic. And even if somebody did throw in a bowl of rice or a potato, the 225-pound bodybuilders of that time, 200-pound guys, they would be so large, and their muscle glycogen stores were so large, that any carbohydrate they did have would get burned off. They had larger glycogen stores, so filling them up would be a task. And from there, emptying them will basically always put them in ketosis. There are ways to force ketosis. So besides the fact that, yes, they were on performance-enhancing drugs, some people would argue less than people use nowadays, but the point is, we have golden era bodybuilders as a case study for the efficacy of ketogenic muscle building. Ketogenic states were in place for the golden era bodybuilders. This is the biggest, most influential generation of bodybuilders we have, and we know strict facts about their nutritional protocols. And we know they would go to the pancake house on weekends and do things of that nature in a carb backloading style, right? Which is exactly what I preach for you to do to find a balance in your lifestyle. Balance does not have to be, rice and chicken breast 5 days a week and then 2 days you binge. That is not a good balance. A good balance would be the deep fat burning state, the enhanced mental focus of ketosis on a regular basis. Once you're fat adapted, you will get physical performance as well, because the first month you're probably not. But after then, your physical performance is going to skyrocket. And this is the state that these golden era bodybuilders would have been in, and then they have their carbs to glycogen load on the weekend, super compensate glycogen because they're in a ketogenic state majority of the week. And realistically, even then, it's not something they had to do all the time, but it's not something that they didn't have to do. You can make this balance work for you You could split it in every couple days, provided you get fat adapted first. You could split it in every couple weeks. It all depends up on you and what you prefer to do. I'm just telling you to look into it because it's a great way to balance your lifestyle. And this generation of golden era bodybuilders is the one that is, you know, the most influential there, and they use those strategies. I have videos on this that break it down more, but that is a great side note. And if we're going back to the, you know, recommendations about how to make this fit in your lifestyle, you could do a fasting oriented approach. Granted, you'll need to get fat adapted to use fats better in your body. So the best way to achieve that is by a month of ketogenic dieting strictly. No carbs, no starches, no fruits. No fruits. Okay? This is how it would have occurred in nature. And you have to get that fat adaptation in place because at that point you can burn fat more than doubly effective. I have a video on this. You can use carbohydrates more effectively because you're not taking any in, so your body knows it has to use them more effectively, and it won't waste them. It will simply sub ketones in as the fuel source for functions in the body that carbohydrates didn't need to do. And this is also beneficial because you're creating less reactive oxygen species because, again, carbohydrates create more waste in the citric acid cycle. So you're getting an energy increase with less waste produced. This is why I prefer personally to have ketosis, be the foundation of my lifestyle and put in carbs strategically when I feel like it. I had a pizza the other day. Okay, you can still make it work and you can still be lean year round. This is also why in my videos I'm lean year round, but slowly building muscle. And you'll see that in my videos where, I'm curling 60 pounds an arm. I'm benching good enough weight, throwing up, 200 plus pounds on the incline for repetition. Just turned 24, 9 years keto bodybuilding. This is the state I'm at. It doesn't mean and the thing is too, I don't train powerlifter style. I train bodybuilding style. I'm not going to throw on 315 and go for a 1 rep max. I'm going to throw on 200 area and crank it out. Okay. Bodybuilder style training. Again, I'll still throw on 60-pound dumbbell curls, but it's stuff that I can still hit for 5 or 6 reps. These are things that most people would consider good lifts. And I know one of them is an isolation lift, but you get my point. I'm just trying to think of lifts I have documented scattered around my page. Okay. So this video is meant to be very theoretical. Think about these topics, vet everything I'm telling you, and question everything, you learn, including stuff from me, especially stuff from me. But the main point I wanted you to take home here is I wasn't trying to throw up a load of studies in this video. I have videos that break down studies in an analytical manner. This video is meant to give you more the logical reasons behind these things so that you can fit the pieces together better. Okay? Ketosis is not just simply this marketed diet that everybody speaks about so they can cash out. This is a lifestyle that can make you dramatically more functional a person. And this is why I make so many videos. This is not my only job. I have 2 other jobs and I do coaching from this. I sell merchandise from this. I'm writing books. There's so much I do, and it's only because I'm able to maintain stable blood sugar all day and not be dependent on food because ketosis allows me to do that and fuel my brain a little bit better. I also read a lot, and I go through almost 100 books a year. There's a lot of things I do that I could gloat about myself, but the point is it can make you dramatically more functional, and all I say to you, for your own sake, is look into this, okay? There's a lot of information that's flawed on this because most studies will use people who aren't keto adapted. They will get people on a ketogenic diet, not necessarily concerned about how well formulated it is, and they will have them do it for less than 4 weeks and say, yeah, they didn't build as much muscle as the carb group. Well, yeah, because the people in the keto group were still adapted to carbohydrates and you didn't give them enough time. And this is why you need a month to adapt to keto before you start seeing any benefits. So that's another caveat for this video. One thing I will say is that it's very unlikely for somebody to see massive muscle gains in the first month of a ketogenic diet. Very unlikely, because their body's getting the training wheels on. Okay, you're not in full swing of things. And this is ultimately why keto is not as popular as some of the more, if it fits your macro style approaches, because they don't take a month of buffer. They might not work as dramatically as somebody who, loses 100 pounds from keto, but the point is it takes more buy-in for keto to work for you. But is a month of your life really that much buy-in to get all this benefit, all this lifestyle productivity and functionality? I certainly don't think so, and I'm a living testament of it, given that I've been doing it for 9 years. And granted, there were times where I would experiment with different diets. I would get fat on purpose just to prove points for videos. Okay, there's plenty of things I would do. But the point is, this is a great foundation for your lifestyle and you can make it work for you. It is a tool for you to stay lean, build muscle aggressively throughout the entirety of your life. No more bulking for 6 months, getting fat in the process, and then cutting. And, hating yourself the whole way and going to sleep hungry every night and gnawing your arm off. If I'm going to break down a couple more points for the muscle building technicalities here. Like I said, protein is key for muscle building. Training hard is key for muscle building. If you're not doing either of those properly, you're not going to get results on any diet. But at the same time, if you are eating enough food, if you are getting enough energy in, it doesn't have to necessarily be a super surplus because everybody's focused on the quantity. Think about the qualities of food. Think about the nutrient density. Get higher quality foods, organic, pasture-raised foods, grass-fed foods. Those things are going to be better for you, and they're going to help you to actually obtain more nutrients, which is going to give your body more resources to build muscle and also help you feel more satiated in a cutting scenario. When you're getting enough protein in of high quality sources, when you are training hard enough and breaking down that tissue, creating the demand, your body will respond. If we didn't have that ability, we would not be here. So hopefully this has been an interesting conversation for you, and the discussion has allowed you to fit some of the puzzle pieces together better. Leave me some comments down below. Leave me some questions and watch my other videos because I probably answered all the questions you have about so many different things. Now I'm getting into points where I'm discussing the theories behind these things. I'm not passing this video off as if it's, 100% verifiable, peer-reviewed fact. This is simply information I pulled from studies of that caliber, but I'm spewing it all at you so you understand how the picture fits together. If people haven't even looked into these studies, you can't just simply show them one study. You have to show them the amalgamation of everything together so they can understand the narrative. And that's what I'm trying to do with this video. So, like it, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram. And go to my website, RomanoKeto.com, if you're interested in coaching, consults. I do consultations where I will answer every single question you have, and we will spit out an action plan of exactly what to do, a program for you to do afterwards we're done answering the questions. And also I do coaching as well, where we'll be in communication 24/7 on a day-to-day basis. This is what I do oftentimes for people with, brain injuries, people with diabetes, people with fertility issues, things of that nature. And also people trying to get shredded. I've had plenty of people who enjoy that because keto can be very confusing with all the misinformation out there. So a lot of my approaches are ketogenic fasting oriented, carb backloading oriented. Those are the techniques I live by and I encourage you to look into. They will benefit you. They are a tool for you. That is it for this video. Anthony Romano, peace.